Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis is a deep story that came out in 1915 and has since become one of the most famous and studied works of modern literature. At the beginning of the story, a young man named Gregor Samsa wakes up one morning to find that he has been strangely changed into a huge bug. This change happens quickly and for no clear reason. It throws Gregor and his family into a nightmare world that tests the very foundations of their normal lives. The story goes into depth about themes like loneliness, identity, and how silly it is to be human. Gregor's change into an insect is a strange and fantastical part of the story that Kafka uses to show psychological angst and how fragile human relationships and social obligations are. A family flat is where the story takes place. Gregor Samsa lives there with his father, mother, and sister Greta. Gregor is the only one who makes money for the family. He works as a traveling salesman to pay off his dad's bills. Gregor has a hard time getting used to his new body and the restrictions it puts on him the morning after he changes. His first worries are about everyday things, which shows that he feels duty-bound to his job and family, even though his situation is terrible. When Gregor doesn't get up and go to work, his family and the head clerk at his office start to worry and think something is wrong. The next few exchanges show how much the family depends on Gregor and set the tone for how they will react to his change. When they finally see Gregor after he has changed, they are terrified and disgusted. Gregor's relationship with his family gets worse as the story goes on. At first, his sister Greta is kind and feeds him and cleans his room, but over time, even she gets tired of Gregor and doesn't want to be around him anymore. It gets worse for the family's finances without Gregor's pay, so everyone has to get a job. The flat is rented out to 3 lodgers, which makes things more difficult for the family to live in and deal with Gregor. Gregor is shut in his room and treated like a monster, so he feels more and more alone and ignored. His health gets worse, which is a reflection of how his family's love and support for him is fading. The most exciting part of the novella happens when Gregor, feeling lonely, leaves his room during a family meeting. This causes chaos, and the family decides that Gregor has to leave. Gregor's death brings the story to a close, and his family is relieved. In a deeply ironic turn of events, Gregor's death seems to free the family. They go on with their lives, leaving their flat for a day trip to the country. They are hopeful about the future and think about how Greta's marriage might work out. The ending seems to make a sad statement about human nature and how people can be thrown away once they are no longer useful to society. The Metamorphosis has a lot of ideas and signs in it. People often feel alone and less human in modern society, where people are respected only for their ability to work and fit in. Gregor's change can be seen as a reflection of this. Through Gregor's relationship with his family, which quickly falls apart when he can't fulfill his job as a provider, Kafka shows how fragile human bonds can be. The story also deals with identity and self-worth issues, as Gregor tries to make sense of his human mind in his bug body. His physical isolation in his room is a metaphor for his psychological separation from other people. It shows how his mind, which hasn't changed, is at odds with his body, which has. Kafka's use of absurdity and surrealism makes the feeling of being lost and existential fear stronger. This is why The Metamorphosis is considered one of the most important works of existential and absurdist literature. The story can be read in many different ways, which makes it an important piece of literature and a deep reflection on what it means to be human.